Do you think it's important for us to find out about methodology before starting doing our project, or shall we do it alongside with the project?
Yes, I think it's important that you do have, you do work alongside, have them in place alongside, or even change them as you're going along, and also use the tools, or perhaps a mosaic approach, which is what I use. Really, yeah.
I definitely did. I came up with my question, what it was, and then you've got to work out how on earth are you going to answer it. So by knowing all the different research methods, you stand a chance of working out how you're going to do it, don't you? I mean, I made a bit of a mistake, as those of you who saw, because I went down the questionnaire route first, which got me nowhere. Well, it got me as far as I knew that 70% of my colleagues didn't agree with me, but it wasn't the best method for actually getting the job done. So, yeah, really have a look at those methods and think about how you could use them, and whether actually they're going to give you what you want, and whether it's going to be the best method, the best tool to achieve what you want to do.
Would you like to say anything, Paul?
I agree with that to a certain extent. I would say that the first most important thing to do is to actually read. That's your first point. That's the first place to be thinking about. Then, really, out of you reading and out of your experience within the setting or whatever, will come, in a way, your question will come. And it's, once you've got that question, it's about thinking about, now, what methodology, what philosophy out there in those textbooks fits that question? Does the qualitative approach fit that question? Does it the quantitative approach excuse me, fits that question? So it's about best fit. It's about what best fits the question you're wanting to study. But I would say, first of all, it's about reading. That's what it's about at the outset.
I would agree with John, because I think there was a literature review that it showed me, this underpinned my knowledge of the area that I wanted to research. And then I did, like my colleague here did, I did a questionnaire which didn't cover what I was going to fit, what would fit my research. But you actually talk about that, because it's about the process of research, and the things that you do. So it depends what kind of research you're doing. I did action research, so methodologically, the process was in the research itself, and it was just how the things that I incorporated to keep on the track.
How often would you meet with your project tutors, and did you ever feel like you could just go to them in an emergency, or if you were struggling with something, or is that a bit too personal? I would just be worried, if I got to a certain point in my project, could I just email them, or would you contact them by phone? Would you come meet with them?
I basically pestered the tutor. I'm sure if I hadn't done, I would have got a little email from her saying, how are you getting on? But I didn't want to go forward to the next step until I was absolutely sure I'd achieved the bit before, because that could actually affect your project and how it's going to flow. So it's very difficult if you haven't been a distance learner up until this point, because you've been used to getting lots of prompts. So I had been a distance learner, so probably it was not so daunting for me to work in this way. I was used to getting my work done and sending it in and getting some advice back. But I would keep on top of what you're doing, and when you can, I don't know whether I did too much, but after every chapter, I said to my tutor, right, I've written chapter 3, I'm about to start chapter 4, can I see you? I'm not quite sure on how much meeting time there is, but yeah, I did try and keep on top of it.
Similarly with myself as well, I was a distance learner. With every email I was responded to, Mickey was great. Anything I needed, I could just email, and Mickey responded more or less straight away. Any concerns I had, telephone tutorials and meetings as well, just to flag any concerns up really.
I think me too, I was a distance learner, so maybe we're more used to working on our own. But my tutor, I did the same thing. Every chapter I would send it to her. But the only thing I would advise is page number. Because I sent her once about 40-something pages with no numbers. And then she had, gone through it, and it took me ages to put it back into the way that it should be.
Okay, I'm going to give some insider information. I think a good academic, really, would look at you in front of me. I'd say how I would do it. And there's going to be certain people who are going to need an awful lot of support. There are others who are not going to want the same type of support. They want support, but it may be different. So for each person, I sort of tailor, if you like, to their needs. So it's not about me, it's about them. It's about what are they presenting to me. Think about the child in the nursery. It's what the child is presenting to you. And you build on what the child is bringing to you. And you work there accordingly. So for some people, it may be 3 times. And that may be enough. For others, it may be 6, 8, 10 times. So it all depends what you're working with. And that's how I look at it. It's not about time, in a sense. It's about what you're working with. I don't think I'd be very happy, though, if somebody sent me 50 pieces of writing. I think I wouldn't like that. Because then you're thinking about the quality of what feedback you're going to get. It can't be a great deal. I haven't that much time to go over 50 pages of writing. It's going to be an overview of what you're sending me. So I think that the motto is little or often, little and often. And I think, what Lynette said, I think is true. The onus is with you. You are doing the project. I'm not doing it. I will support you all I can, and people who've had me know this. But you are the ones that are doing it. You have to take ownership of your own learning. And if you won't, I'm not going to be there phoning you up, emailing you every week. No. It's up to you. And people who draw on the support of the tutors generally do exceptionally well. But you've got to be proactive. It's you. So remember that. And it's also about you stating your needs, not your wants. There's a very big distinction between needs and wants. But likewise, do expect your tutor to come back to you and say, actually, I need this now, or I need that then. They will have needs as well. Or I can't meet you then because I've got to be elsewhere. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's a two-way process. It's about keeping communication open. And I think what Lynette said at the very beginning about being proactive is the key. But it's you who needs to be proactive.
When you're first introduced to your tutor, they will let you know what times and days that they work. And they should also let you know when they will be available for one-to-one tutorials. It could be through the telephone, it could be face-to-face, it could even be through Skype for those students that are a bit far away from the university. Also, if you have any concerns or anxieties, or you're stuck somewhere, make sure you contact your tutor. Because there's nothing worse than being at home and worrying, and you can't move on to the next stage. Talking through these things with your tutor will help you immensely. Now, if you look in your student handbooks, you will see that there's a timeline in there, and when work is expected to be handed in. So you have a guideline of when the pieces of work are expected. And this will be very helpful, and your tutor will be following that timeline too. Okay, so I hope that your relationships with your tutor works well, but it's best to get to know them as soon as possible and find out what their hours of working, what they are willing to give. And also, it's very important that you come to the to the project events. They're very helpful, and also use the WebLearn materials. So that's my advice.
Any more questions?
So we were talking earlier, in the lit review, when you were talking about the strands, are those aspects that you're interested in within your question that you're sort of focusing on in the lit review?
Yes, but they were very separate from the findings. I did keep it quite open, but they didn't change. I sort of left a gap open before for any unexpected themes that may have derived from the data. Yes, yeah.
Transferring over from the foundation degree last year, a lot of tutors said, you know, you're now at level 6, you need to be writing at level 6, taking it away from the foundation degree. So doing a project, I kind of feel quite overwhelmed because it's quite different to any other thing I've done in early years before. Do you find that you are capable of writing at that level because you've already done level 6 writing, or do you have to take it up another notch as it's a project, or did you find it okay to continue writing in an academic way from doing your previous modules?
I also studied from level 3, level 4, then level 5, then up to this one. So what I would say is there's just different ways of, you have different structures of your writing, like you have to be more meticulous with your referencing. And when you put quotes in, you have to make sure that you're putting it in as they said it, then you've got logic. So it's just following these things, but I didn't find much difference. And because you're still writing an essay before, you've still been writing essays, but it's just been a bit more meticulous and maybe sometimes questioning some of the things which are written rather than just writing it down what they've said. Maybe at level 6 you might question it.
Yeah, I agree with that, the critical reflection, because that shows how much knowledge you've got and that you're really understanding what it is you want to do. So just reading something and putting it in a different way, or just quoting from it, you're not engaging with your reading as you should be at this level. So really, we were talking earlier about the value of keeping a log. When you're reading and you come across things, you can ask yourself a question. If you've read something and you're thinking, I'm not sure about that, write it down. I'm not sure about X, Y, Z, because when you come on to read more books, you might find the answer, and then you can tick that off and think, now I'm understanding. If you do that, you will engage with your reading a lot more, and that will be reflected in your final project.
I think, as John and Lynette have said, I agree that reading is very important around particular areas. And the more reading you do, the more perspectives you have on that particular issue or topic or thing that you're trying to address. And this will open up your thinking. And then with your reading and your practice and the government agenda, the EYS, all links together. And I think reading is the key.
Well, I'm going to take you through what I'd be expecting a level 4 student, so that's entry when you enter here. What would I expect from a level 5, and what would I be expecting from a level 6? What generally we will be getting from a level 4 student is what I call descriptive analysis. They attempt to analyse, but it's rather descriptive. What we then would get from a level 5 student would be what I would call analysis. So they're beginning to analyse, they're beginning to take things apart and relate them to theory, relate them to authors, in a much more sort of systematic way than they are doing at level 4. At level 6, I would be doing what I could call critical analysis. And that's the process we're in at the moment with my research group who have me and the debates at level 6. We're looking at things from the point of view of, well, yes, but. This is the analysis of what this author says. Do you agree with it? And if you do, why do you agree with it? So I'm encouraging you to think in a slightly different way. And by thinking in a slightly different way, you will write in a slightly different way than you, say, would have done at level 4.
Can I just add one more thing? I think at this level as well, you are expected to look at journals.
Yeah.
Journals are the most recent piece of research, and authors of journals normally are writing in a journal before they publish a book. It's something that they may have been researching on. So it's very important to look at the journals on the particular topic or theme that you are addressing. Also, I would say that we do expect you to be looking at the original theorists, like Piaget's work and Vygotsky's. If you don't understand the original theory or the writing, go to a secondary source, somebody who's written about it, like Bruce or Julia Manning Morton, or somebody that's written about the original theory, so you get an idea, and then try looking at the original theory and reading it. Okay, so that is what we are expecting. And also, on top of that, we are expecting you to look widely from legislation, from journals, from texts, from magazines, from different sources, from the internet, different sources that we are expecting for you to research. Okay?
Can I add something to that?
Please. Yes.
It's not, might not be relevant to this field, I don't know, but one of the different fields we're working on. Does anyone have Twitter accounts? Who's got Twitter accounts? Okay, which might see, I don't know if you like it or not, I'm not a great person for Twitter, but a lot of the current writers and people that write in journals now post their links on Twitter. So if you find someone or someone in your field that you can follow, you find that they send their information, they post their information up where you can find the latest, not just journals, but information they've put on their blog or anything else like that. And some of that's really key. So don't get sort of tied up with Twitter too much, but if you find the people that you want to follow, and you can get all the links from them, and that's really up to date. That's probably the most up to date information. There's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to get you tweeting about the project.
Twitter's only the route that you arrive at the project.
Keep trying, Edwina.
So,
Edwina has
yeah,
a
and then I'll come to you after.
and then that'll be our last question. You've got the honour of the last question, Faith.
Can I just say, I think the worries about studying at level 6 can be overcome a lot by the language that you use. If you use words like concurring, hypothesis, contrary to, that type of language raises the tone of your writing. And actually, we did have, Mickey, what happened to it? Because I had a word list that I used to give students that gave these types of terms that they could be used in the situations that they can be used in. Did it go up on WebLearn?
There is a link now given to us by our CELP colleagues from Manchester University, which has, it's almost like a word generator, and that is something, thank you for reminding me, because we can post that up onto the WebLearn
It was called
site.
Words as Signposts, and actually the student behind me has a copy here. And it is very good.
Edwina, do you just want to say who you are as well?
Yes,
Not everybody might know you.
I sometimes teach here as a visiting tutor. I'm a DL tutor and a project tutor, and visit students as well. So I wear quite a lot of hats here.
Thank you.
My question is, when you want to do your project in your school, and maybe you want to do observations, I know my school, my preschool, they said you have to put your project aside and do the school work. You have to create a time for you to do your observations now. So now I have created a time. I said, okay, I'll do it on Friday, so I'm taking Friday day off to do it. But when I asked her a question, she said that she did her observation every day, which is good, but I will have to do mine maybe only on a Friday. Is that enough time to cover up your project and get everything you need to carry out your project?
Let's put it to the panel.
I think it depends if what you're observing is what you do in your normal job anyway, because in the early years we have as our job is to observe the children. So what I did with mine, because I did like children's tracking of their bike play and things like that, I just did it when I was on my duties outside.
Can I just ask one question? Are you going to a different class to do your observations, or is it within your class that you're doing, or your nursery?
I'm going to do it in my class, and then there's another class upstairs I would like to observe to go up to observe. But most is in my own class.
Right, well, you would be doing observations anyway of your children, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And that could be incorporated, you could use that.
Okay.
So it wouldn't feel like you're doing a different... So you would, if you're doing your observations, you would do them anyway, and you'd use them for your project, as long as you've got the consent. You'd use them from your project and for your work.
And then there's a time that
They'd
you want to
complement.
just sit down aside and just watch and write. So you can't do it then.
Okay.
You understand what I'm trying to say? You cannot do it then because now you are working, you're observing and writing at the same time. But there's a difference between when you just want to sit aside and just watch and just write.
Yes.
You can't do that.
Well, that's when, yes, well, that's when you have to work with your colleagues, obviously, and your manager or whoever your line manager is, and set time aside for that. Okay.
I was the same really. I had to feed back into the children's EYFS profiles. So I used quite a lot of my observations and put them into the profiles really. So it's just a bit of me giving something back for the time that they'd allowed me to work on my project really.
Yes. I can add to that. I think I said, for those of you who came to see my group, was that how the staff really got on board was when they saw that watching the children, they actually fed into all their areas of their profile because they were seeing so much coming for the different areas. So I think once it starts going, hopefully they'll see the results and the benefits from it. And then really that's your profiles being done. And if they are giving you certain time to do observations just primarily for your project, and you're observing all the children that you've got permission for, and you feed it back to your colleagues so your colleagues get copies for their profile, it really helps the whole thing work together.
They have to see that it's actually benefiting them as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Could I add something? I just wanted to bring this section to a close, and I wanted us to be able to thank Yolanda and John, but also thanking Lynette, Sarah and Karima for giving up their time this morning and giving us the benefit of their wisdom, because I've really enjoyed it, and I hope you have really enjoyed their contributions this morning. And we'd like to just bring a small token of our appreciation to you, so I'm going to pass the microphone back
I'm
again.
the token of appreciation.
You've done so well. Congratulations, and this will be so thankful.
Can we just say thank you?